wait for some more people to join, then we're going to get going. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for joining. Je vous en prie, merci les gars. J'oublie tout ce qui s'est passé. Oh, alors je restais dans le rue, nous parlons. Che bagatelle, le negro, vision, tenho todo que você quer. Então, vou te ver aqui. Então, a gente vai fazer. Hello, everyone. So great to have you all here tonight. Welcome to Coherence. I'm your host, Joey Greiner. Coherence is a show where every week we explore the concept of finding your purpose in life. What's your mission? What's your life's work? And every week our guests share their own personal journey of how they came to discover their true calling and share some tips on how to live an authentic life in harmony with your true self. Today we're joined by Santiago Rafael, who is an author, a master in the Akashic records, and a teacher of Initiatic Cultures. Since his spiritual awakening, he's been studying and integrating soul wisdom to comprehend the crazy experiences he's had in his life. Now, after doing that for 7 years of trainings, initiations, and graduations, he's incorporated his mastery of his gifts and started teaching them to the world. His work's been reconnecting, activating, and awakening memories and beings and places and ancestral cultures that he's visited, providing initiation, coaching, and training. So Santiago is helping each person in their process of healing, empowering, and remembrance. Santi, thank you so much for being on the show.
Good evening. Thank you, Joey, for inviting. Thank you, the Assemblage team, for assembling this and making this possible.
It's wonderful to have you here. This is really great. We had a fantastic conversation in person at the Assemblage a few months ago, and I'm really excited to have another conversation with you here today.
Yes. Every time we have a conversation, it's a insightful and pleasant exchange. So I'm glad we're opening up this for many to view. Yeah.
Absolutely. So for the people that might not know who you are, can you please give us a little bit of a background of your story, a little more of an introduction than what I just shared with the people?
Yeah, a pleasure. This is into the coherence of from where I come. That's first initiatic step to remember and to not forget that I come from being asleep, as I acknowledge that I have been in this zombiness, being dead alive, in the proposal that society puts us into this kind of inertia. It's like in this, follow the script of going to universities, working for my father in politics, being a good person, doing social politics, giving food, studying business, to take care of the legacy of, the burden of the family and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I found myself very miserable with overweight, depression, escaping with addictions, partying, alcohol from Thursday to Sunday, and trying to check out from life and not feel. And
that sounds familiar.
yeah. And well, I've been in that downward spiral until I could not lift up, get up from my bed, and I was overweight with arthritis. Like I felt a lot of pain inside the body, to the point that I could not sleep, to the point that it was so painful being in my body, like feeling constant broken glass inside, and each movement was like pieces of glasses cutting me from inside, and just having to numb it with like whatever, video games, movies, and in this partying lifestyle, I went to a jam of hip hop dance party, and I found a dancer, and I was kind of drunk, but my eyes were like seeing things that I never saw before. And then I followed this dancer because it was like doing magic, like this, it's like synesthesia, when senses connect. And I said, okay, this dancer showed me something that I wouldn't have listened to that if I wouldn't have seen that. So it was like a spark of some magic that made me follow. And that kept a trail of connecting with dancers, artists, and inside more sensitive people that brought spirituality and different things. And in this path of spirituality, like spiritual and dancing, I'm starting to feel more my body, and even dancing through the pain.
Yeah.
Even that I was dancing, I took painkillers, but I danced. I changed the environment, the activities, and this sensitivity of another people led me to this woman that came from India and made me a therapy. I don't know what it was, like energy work, that I was not even familiar with it. Mm-hmm. This was 8 years ago. 8 years ago. And it was so strong what I saw. I started seeing many things, and like it was like 1 hour, but it was like different universes, worlds,
wow.
Living like memories, like it was like now that I know, would be like an ayahuasca trip, mm-hmm. Very vivid, but without anything. And so I had to start understanding what was happening to me. And then in that same trip, I started looking for different therapies, channeling practices to give me a reference of how to handle that. And that led me to study coaching, emotional intelligence, talking with different beings from different places, and in the channeling practices, the Akashic records that have been my main, base and structure to proper channel, and confounded with other types of channeling that I have been on, has been my main home to go back.
Great. Now, people might not be so familiar with some of the terms that we use in conversation regularly, because we do a lot of this inner work and spiritual work. But for someone who is not initiated in these things, can you give us a quick description of what channeling is?
Yes. Well, channeling is the use of, or the verb as well, of the beingness of the channel we are. As a channel, there's a flow of information. There's a passing of certain essence, you can say, or like I like this analogy of a radio. We are this radio tuning into a channel. So we are channeling and broadcasting. So we are receiving, processing in our system and broadcasting on the outside.
Yes.
The whatever program we are tuning. So whatever channel, we are the programs of the systems, and then the image that comes out or the message. So basically, is this? It's not even an ability, because it's a capacity that we all have, that we can be aware of how we are using it, or just channel subconsciously, unconsciously channeling other entities that we are not aware. So that's basically introduction to channeling.
Yeah. So going through our daily life, we're constantly receiving information.
Mm-hmm.
And in our last conversation that we had preparing for this interview today, you helped me to think of it in a very interesting way, as we're always receiving information and we have to learn how to distinguish what is our subconscious, what is noise, what is energy that's not ours, what is societal programming and messages that we're receiving from our environment that don't necessarily have our best interest at heart. And then also being able to focus and recognize what are the messages that we are receiving that are for our benefit. And
Yes.
that turned on a light bulb for me. I loved how you explained it to me like that way.
Yes, that's a combination already. When we have the awareness of the initiatic cultures, that has been a very insightful and kind of a better embodiment of the practices, the channeling practices. When I started in the initiatic cultures studies, what is called, we saw it in the Hero's Way and
Yeah.
the Marine Training, the warrior awareness, that you will see in many of the initiatic cultures, what is called the warrior awareness. And for fighting this is for fighting for the space inside ourselves, for our consciousness that can be kind of possessed in a sense, or invaded or inhabited or used by these things that are not ours. So in the channeling practices, we work a lot on the energetic and the multiple bodies that we have, clearing. There's like a hygiene of our multidimensionality to fine-tune. And that's what we do with the warrior consciousness.
Absolutely. Removing our societal programming of fear and limiting beliefs, thinking we're not good enough, that we're not powerful. And we have those voices in our heads constantly that are not ours. Those are programming that we receive through our life, telling us that we shouldn't speak up, we shouldn't even try, that we're not capable, we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not good looking enough, whatever. Those voices are not us. And we have to learn how to tune those voices out and really focus on what is actually our own voice talking to us inside, and what we're receiving from other energies, which I think is the more known definition of channeling, is to have a communication with another type of energy, that a being that is not necessarily us, but is benevolent and wants to give us guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, in this has many variants. Since we are in the channeling topic, there are many ways of channeling, and there are many frameworks. I think that having awareness on which is the proper framework is what changes the communication, because there are common codes for establishing communication between beings. And that opens up certain spectrum of beings you can be talking, because you talk certain languages. Yeah. Or it generates distortion and misunderstandings if you don't have those codes. So it's like knowing a language, So it's a first, the kinds of channeling is nice to understand the limits. For example, at the beginning, when I was channeling unconsciously, it happened to be more like a mediumship, you know, something taking over me and moving my body, and I feeling like an overlapping of consciousness in between myself. So I was saying like, okay, there's someone, and I'm like being like the you know, the one that goes in the, not in the driver's seat, in the on the side, the passenger seat, but someone was using my body, and I was like, you know, this, I realized that was not okay. And I was doing clearing a house for a woman that she was like projecting her son that has committed suicide some years ago and lived there. And she was trying to make me fill up that space. So her son started possessing me. That's a story I don't usually tell, but this is like how I embodied and passed through the body the mediumship that was unconscious, and then I touched a limit. Okay, this was not okay.
Yeah.
So then I was starting to have more care of that, and this happens more usual than we know. This is more frequent than we know. You know.
Absolutely. We need to be able to learn how to protect ourselves energetically, how to protect our own energy, especially if we're going to attempt channeling work. But even if we're completely unaware of what channeling is, our own personal energy is susceptible to pick up things from other energies that are not us and don't necessarily have our best interest at heart. So I think that that's one of the earliest lessons in this initiation into channeling work, is how to protect your own energy. Am I right in that?
Yes, that's the step one of the hero's way, is the identities, identification, not being possessed by ideologies, identities that can be beings or thought forms that have like a personality, you know, that suddenly we have many voices inside because there are many thought forms. They're making noise or chit-chatting among them. So that hygiene inside of our consciousness is crucial.
Yes. So you've touched on a few things that I really would love to get into more. Let's start with the hero's way, because that's the thing you just mentioned in your last sentence a minute ago. So it's partially based on The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, which many people may be familiar with, but it's also a combination of that and a text that is not widely available in English, The Magician's Map by Parise. So can you please expand on how you are combining those two to create this hero's way and how that works?
Yes. Well, I just finished this Wednesday. I finished the recording of the steps, step by step, and I've been sending them the trip to the journey to join and to, because it's more experiential, because it's a step by step that I unfold. This is a combination of the Initiatic Cultures mentor that I have, that is Jose Luis Parise, that has unfolded and studied many of the Initiatic Cultures, I don't know anyone that knows more about initiation than him.
Real quick, can you, before we get into the rest of that, you said Initiatic Cultures a bunch of times, and I think we should explain what that is before we get into further explanation on the hero's journey, because we keep saying Initiatic Cultures, and not everyone might know what that is. So let's expand on that idea first, please.
Yes. The Initiatic Cultures all have in common that they have some intrinsic wisdom that is applied, and you see them living it. So there are the Hopi tribe over there, the Lakota, the Queros in Peru, the Celtics, the Egypt is very We know initiations, many from Egypt, temples. These all have in common some initiatic rites and rituals that show the initiation of a transformation path. So it's the evolution of our consciousness to proving ourselves that we are at a certain level. So we are connecting with this ancient wisdom that they all have in common. When you see the maps that they replicate the same maps, the interconnectivity among their deities, their totems, their practices, is incredible how they all overlap. So the initiatic cultures are the ones that get us closer to be the godlike beings that we are meant to be.
Yes, I think that is a great explanation, that people are definitely wondering how there are pyramids in Egypt and Mexico and Cambodia, and there are cultures that are so far away from each other on the planet, but have incredibly similar architecture. And then you go into their traditions and their cosmology and their understanding of the planets and the stars. There definitely is a higher intelligence there than they're given credit for in school, that we learn in modern academia. So the idea of initiatic cultures is really powerful for me, that there is this ancient wisdom passed down, and we have to purify ourselves or prove to our teachers and ourselves that we're worthy of this knowledge, to be a carrier of the knowledge to pass on for the next generation.
Well, the thing in there is the test is not to prove our teachers or our mentors, is to prove with our life. Paris, this mentor of Initiatic Cultures, says, when you want to try someone's mastery or to confirm it, look at their life. That's the mastery.
Embodying it, yeah.
If they have a life according to what they preach, and it's all around them, and you can see them in all the fronts. Yeah. Okay, that's the living proof. So it's like everybody can know things, everybody can connect with ancient wisdom and whatever. It's like it's not about the wisdom or the knowledge. It's about the embodiment and the application. You not starting or beginning, initiating. That's a different level of entering and approaching life.
Yeah, actually walking the walk, the beingness of it, not just the knowingness, but the being, actually embodying those principles. Okay, great. I think we've got that covered. Now let's pick back up on the hero's path.
Yes, and the hero's path is a combination first of the magician's, El Camino de la Magia would be the magician's method, and the Joseph Campbell plus the gaming. And that's my main component, the gaming theory and initiatic games I played in my life. And when I saw the structure of what is initiatic, I understood there were imprints in myself since child that were bringing me codes of initiation. Right. And this has been strong, and I put that input in the initiatic cultures and the hero's journey. So we have a sequence to become heroic. And it's not just because this is a thing that people confound themselves. Even during the sessions of assessment, the supervisions, they still kept confounding hero with savior. And hero doesn't mean savior, even that the movies show that. The hero is someone who is faced into a major challenge that requires something beyond the ordinary, beyond normal, beyond human. Yeah. That's heroics. Something that not most people would do.
You have to answer
So
the hero's call.
Yes, you answer the hero's call, and it's like we have many movies. In fact, the archetype of the movies, the heroic archetype of the movies works so deeply in us because they are reminding us of this deep embedded wisdom that is being called to come out. But many you see the call and don't come. See the first signs, or get deviated, or they don't follow, or go back. You know, there are many steps. Like even an initiatic book is The Alchemist of Paulo Coelho.
Yes.
Has many initiatic codes in there. There you are. There you go.
Yeah, and Joseph Campbell, when he was writing out these different elements of the archetype, all of these pieces of the formula that all these stories follow, he was looking at the ancient Greek epics like the Iliad and the Odyssey, that they follow these same type of formulas, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and even Harry Potter. It's all the same formula. We all start out with a normal life, and then there's a call to something greater, and then there's resistance to it, and then doing it anyway, and then there's all these steps that I'll let you go into more as you had already started. But yeah, there's so many great examples of the hero's journey in literature and fiction that we all are so familiar with those elements. And being able to look at the map and recognize those things in our own life is incredibly powerful. Like at each opportunity, at each turn, we have to face what you call the sphinxes.
Yes, you brought it out right to the point of resistance of the universe, and that's the first main test, that when we are at the door or something beyond normal, we have this resistance in ourselves, or as it is manifested outside, is a sphinx. In Egypt, the sphinx is the one who is guard keeping or guardianing the treasure inside. Mm-hmm. So we are challenged by this sphinx to say, do you really want this? Can you pass through me, understanding and respecting the sphinx? Otherwise, it will come later. You will have to pass on the way out. So yeah. You have to have a good understanding of how to handle the sphinxes. So once you pass these sphinxes, by learning how to read energies, having the virtues of the hero to prove yourself, and to have the toolkit and the resourcefulness to pass through, then you keep going, and then you have to pass all the little traps inside the chamber before the treasure. So that's the part of when we are proving how we can combine our energies, internal, external, masculine, feminine, use all the sacred forces with the respect of the sacredness. That's the thing that has been missing in our culture now, the understanding of the sacredness. That's why the lack of meaning, the void, the internal dissatisfaction that most people are going through, and the nihilism, because they don't even get to get in touch to some sacredness and to the taste of that.
We're overstimulated. There are too many options of things to watch on TV or to listen to. There's so much news that's coming out constantly. I think we're definitely overstimulated, where we don't even have time to reflect deeply. There's always some kind of distraction. And
exactly. And that's the ego will try to do that all the time. That's the other, as Parisa says, the other, or the ego, or the lowercase self, that we think that is us. I'm just procrastinating, we think we are distracted, procrastinated, addicted, and those are the prisons that the ego built up on ourselves. And I got out of those prisons: addiction, depression, distraction, and all these things that are constant. It's like the other thing of the initiatic terms, to bring it very, very into the scheme, is that it's not, I'm already beyond that. I already, I got out of addiction, I got out of all the stuff. No, you come back to initiate again. You are all the time initiating and then coming this, and let's not say struggle, but we are constant.
It's a process.
And process,
Yeah, absolutely. It's I don't recall who said it, but someone said enlightenment is not a place you get to. Enlightenment is like a being in the moment. And you're always looking to enlightenment. You're always working towards being enlightened. It's not something you achieve and you just stay there. It's something that you have to continuously work towards.
Yeah, it's a way of being. It's like that's even in the Greeks, when we work on the ontology of understanding our being, it's a way of being. It's like we are getting thrown at many inputs, many situations. As happens, I will just bring what I share in the initiations, in the Akashic Record initiations. I share my first initiation in Akashic Records. I will share this last part when it was getting into the chamber. My personality, or let's say my consciousness, went up to the chamber, and I kept still something of my ways, and there were some guardians, like some Anubis-looking guardians, taking care of it. And then I said, okay, I'm God, I'm all-powerful, I'm almighty, so bring it on. I started fighting the guards, and suddenly when I cut the head of the figure that appeared, everything stops. Like, like you pause time, and I hear a voice saying, this is not a test to see how powerful you are. This was just to see how you behave. We are immortal, we cannot die. You cannot defeat us ever. This is to see how you behave. And when you arrive to those points that you realize it's beyond power struggle, because you are having a relationship or exchange with eternity, or a God consciousness, it's beyond power. It's like a way of being at this point when you are arriving to this. So that embodiment of the hero's virtues and manners is what we train to arrive to higher realms.
Right. And we keep coming back to the Akashic Records because that's a huge pillar of who you are being. And I think not everyone who's listening might know what they are. So quickly, can we do an explanation of what the Akashic Records are?
Yes, the Akashic Records are known as the library of the universal knowledge, the tree of life, because the knowledge is alive. And when you tune into this flow of information that contains all the registries, all the records of what has been, is, and all the timelines of possibility of what can be, the potential universes, because it's not only in this universe, then are layers of how God unfolded, and you're tuning into this stream of living knowledge. That's in many cultures. They talk the tree of life, the book of the golden pages, the book of life. It has been used by many cultures, but different ways of access.
When a culture says it is written.
Well, yeah, Malkut, when they say that,
that's a big part in the Alchemist. They talk about in the Islamic religion, they say muktab, which is it is written, or maktub, sorry, yeah.
Maktub, yeah.
Maktub, yeah.
Well, that's what we work in the initiatic cultures, because this is usually confounded by predestination, and it's
Mm,
nice to clear it out in this talk, because many people say, "Oh, what's my destiny?" You know, it's like
hmm.
they want to keep following the script.
Yeah.
Okay, it's written in the soul's plan. No, no, no. Wait. You can you can get out of the labyrinth that the ego has created to get into a higher perspective, as it's happened to me every time that I open records. I can see myself and the pathways and the situation I am to assess. But also, it's not because you have a predestination. You have some agreements that you can renew, and some lessons and masteries and gifts you have to train or apply in the plot of this, in this place of humanity. So we have many ways to resolve those lessons, to apply our gifts. So it's like writing your history, and you're giving many options according
Mm,
to your soul decisions.
okay.
So it's that predestination. It's is to be written as well. That's in
Yeah.
the Initiatic Cultures, in the map too, that I think is open in the channel. You can see that we have areas of the consciousness when we are writing our story, when we are stopping to see, and that's a nice input to watch this.
So, is that similar to a soul contract?
Uh, mm, you can have different soul contracts
Hmm.
uh, with other souls, like what people look for purpose, as a kind of an agreement with the oversoul that is like an unfoldment of the higher soul.
Mm,
So you can have a different kind of contracts, but also whenever you integrate, because this can catalyze and accelerate, because you go into whatever process of the soul has to do, you accelerate and you resolve contracts, and you can generate new ones.
mm.
Here we enter into karma and
Yeah.
dharma
That was
concepts.
going to be my next question about karma and dharma, actually. That's where my mind was going right from there. So we have lessons that we need to learn in this physical embodiment in this lifetime. And if we don't learn those lessons, if we repeat the old patterns, then we have to learn those lessons again in the next lifetime. That's essentially my understanding of karma, right? Is that we can have residual karma of lessons we were supposed to learn in previous incarnations, and then by learning those lessons, we can clear that karma.
Yes, yes, yes. In fact, that's usually why we come here to resolve some karma, and also by being here, we are producing some karma.
Mm,
So it's not like that thing of this is using karma of this is something that happens to me because no, we are creating karma with each choice. So as channelers or Akashic Records openers, we train a lot on how to handle the karma. For example, just right today, 2 hours ago, I had a session, and, and, and there was some sensitive information on what to do, for example, in the love life. And I have to be very careful when I open records, and I confirm with the bookkeepers, let's say, to the ones who don't know the records, we have bookkeepers that bring these informations and map of possibilities. So when I translate it, it has to be very careful that the karma of how I'm saying it has an effect. It's a cause effect. So we have to handle as well the creation of the timelines with the effects of our actions.
okay, it's taken me a second to wrap my head around, but I think I got it. I think this is a really good segue using the Akashic records to talk a little bit about Akasha, the game of life. Now, some of the people listening may already be playing, especially members of the Assemblage community. And my understanding from working with Rodrigo on this game, Rodrigo Nino was the founder of the Assemblage and the creator of the game Akasha, the game of life. Uh, Now, the name Akasha comes from the Akashic records, which is the ether, the fifth element after the Platonic solids of earth, air, fire, and water, and then Akasha is the ether. And the Akashic records, as you just explained, uh, is the list of all possibilities for our life, and that we can access that library in a meditative plane. And the myth of the game, Akasha, the game of life, is using a technology called the gene keys as our own version of the Akashic records. So the gene keys, for those who might not be familiar, are based on the ancient Chinese divination practice called the I Ching, which is made up of 64 different hexagrams of possibilities of archetypes and personality traits from different energies that are present at the time and place of your birth. So the way that these lines are assembled form different energies based on where and when on the planet you were born, giving you certain traits. And Gene Keys came in a channeled session from its creator, Richard Rudd, who also realized that there's 64 hexagrams in the I Ching and 64 genes in our DNA. And in the game Akasha, the game of life, when we read our gene keys, the myth of the game is that we're accessing our Akashic records. Does that resonate for you, Santiago? Is that how you understand the game?
Well, that's beautiful. The codes of the gene keys. They are keys that are opening these genes memories and activating them to keep the unfolding of our genome. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful tool. It's one of the main tools of personal development I have been using. And yes, many times the Akashic records lead me to this book. By the way, I have here the Akashic
Gene Keys book, yeah.
Gene Keys.
Yeah.
And this particularly, I have to give a heartfelt thanks. I feel the gratefulness with Rodrigo Nino that gave me this physical book. This Yellow Pages book was his. He gave me personally.
Oh, wow.
And this is one of the treasures that I have from him that has activated and transformed my life. So I am deeply thankful for Rodrigo Nino that he's here listening. As he said, whenever we just summon him, he's there listening, enjoying.
Absolutely.
I'm
And
so
for those,
for
yeah,
making this possible and this nest of connection, like the higher contribution he had for humanity was doing this platform of assembling all these light beings, as we met, many of the Akashic lineage we met too.
yes. And for those listening that might not know who Rodrigo Nino was, he was the founder of the Assemblage, the creator of Akasha, the Game of Life, and he just transitioned out of his physical body about a month ago. So having worked with him very closely in the daily contemplations of Akasha, the Game of Life, that we're doing for the second time now, uh, in the 28-day sequence, I know how deeply the gene keys were such an important part of the last 10 years of his life. And for him to have gifted you with the physical book, that definitely is beautiful to have a part of him with you there.
Yes, and he was part of the Akashic lineage. We were the first time when I went to New York. He gave me this. He got initiated in the lineage, so we were connected as well by what is called soul family trees.
Mm.
So we have been working on this powerhouse, this beacon that is the assemblage to gather many light beings and consciousness that are collaborating into this synergy that he had as life work.
Yes.
And yes, we are contributing in that. It's beautiful to know that every time we elevate our frequency, every time we work in any of these gene keys that we have inside, we are contributing to this elevation and articulation of the synergy. This is the synergical, like the synergy that is beyond reciprocal. It's like a multiplier reciprocity where all the components benefit just by their union. That's the synergy component into a structure of power. So that's what we're building, or the channeler proposes with the higher aim for structure of humanity, society.
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful word, synergy, that Richard Rudd coined, that of synergy and a power structure, either a hierarchy or an anarchy, like any structure of power or lack thereof. So the combination of those two words, and that being the 44th gene key, which was Rodrigo's personal life's work that drove him to create such powerful things as the Assemblage and Akasha, the Game of Life. So let's talk about your life's work in Akasha. What are your gene keys?
Fun enough, it was very revealing to me to know that I'm a dancer of grace.
Yeah, because you mentioned that dance was the way you were initiated into yourself.
Exactly. Yes, dance has been initiated me in so many aspects, and exactly dancer of grace. Grace has all the initiation codes, the 22nd gene key, if you read it. When I read it and starts with Akashic Ocean, I was like, these guys are reading my life, because the cellular memory that has been crucial for the cellular memory therapies have been crucial for my alignment, the Akashic records, the initiations were already part of my life. So when I read that gene key, was very insightful, reaffirming, and activating, because it's a poetic articulation of this legacy or where I'm aiming, leading, or heading towards.
Yeah, the gene keys definitely tend to do that. So my personal gene keys on my life's work is the 56 gene key, which is intoxication. And I'm the line one, so I'm a creator is the house that I belong to, so creator of intoxication. And the challenge in the 56 gene key is distraction. And that resonated for me so well, and because I've experienced that so many times in my life, and similar to your story, I definitely got caught up in partying a lot in my 20s, and definitely maybe avoided reality a little bit, not a little bit, a lot, from living that lifestyle, and reading through the 56 gene key of intoxication. And it's not about taking a substance, it's about just living life to the fullest. And Richard Rudd calls it being drunk on God, which I think is a beautiful turn of phrase. It's just about appreciating every moment and enjoying every experience. And I resonate so strongly with that, because I do love life so much. Every little thing just makes me super happy. I find such a pleasure in food or music, but like really ecstasy I find in these things. It really just turns me on. And part of my keys in Akasha are to have that pleasure, that joy that I receive from life be contagious for others, that they can find their own passion and joy because they see how much I appreciate things. And my house being a creator, I'm definitely a creative person, whether it's creating music or podcasts or starting businesses. Just reading through my own gene keys resonated so strongly for me. The first time I did it, it was like shocking and really took me aback how accurate it was. So
Yes,
I would highly
yes,
recommend anyone playing this game to, or anyone try it out. It's totally free. Playakasha.com. Definitely check that out if you're not playing already.
yes. And something from behind the scenes. I remember when Rodrigo was creating already a platform, was putting still the name, was getting the name to the thing. He was so amazed and so on spot because he was watching the graphs, and there was a incredible resonance. It was the the ratio of resonance of people, the perfection of the houses, how they work in between themselves, was so perfectly designed that that's why he steered his life into this,
Yeah.
and had that confirmation that he had to write these codes here. So when in our last conversation, just a month and a half ago, was so deep transmission. He was in a very elevated state. I mean, I remember the the essence when it's transferred. Um, he asked me about the how this being a dancer of grace resonated with me,
Mm-hmm.
and I said it was deeply revealing because uh, naming and acknowledging myself as an artist of life, acknowledging that uh, I am incarnated grace, I am uh, a divine intervention just being played out. That's like so powerful to embody and to enjoy with the dancing, with the artistic way of life.
Yeah.
That also, like 5 years ago, I founded the La Femme, that is Life Artist Formation Associated in Manifestation. So subconsciously, I have been acting and being played by these codes, but now it brought so much awareness, knowing that the philosophy of artist of life uh, moved me sensitive fibers. So he was very pleased to know that uh, this was very accurate. Being a dancer and all how dancers interact with each other, and this synergy to generate the synergy was already on course.
Absolutely. Looking into your activation sequence, the first four gene keys definitely is very affirming. And I think that that's also a very important part of the game that Rodrigo asked us to rate how strongly that resonated with us, so we would actually absorb it. There's a difference between just reading something, but if you have to switch from left brain to right brain, um, or the other way around, how strongly you agree with something and then writing it down, that really makes you hold on to it. And you have to remember to remember, as he would love to say. And yes, it was.
To not forget that we forget.
Yes, yes, exactly. And yeah, it was beautiful to see that that was his life's work. And he had told me that even more than uh, having a very successful real estate development company and creating the physical spaces of the assemblage, that Play Akasha, the game of life, was the completion of his life's work. That was his legacy to be passed on. And Juanita, the mother of his children, had come on our 28th day of contemplations, of the daily contemplations, to say that he knew that this was his legacy being completed on that 28th day of these daily meditations. And then the next day he transitioned. But that's so powerful, knowing that your legacy lives on, that your life's work is complete. And personally, I feel so grateful to have been part of that journey and having this gift to the world. And I talk about it all the time because it's just been so powerful for me personally. And I've basically told everyone in my life to try it out and see if it resonates for them.
Yes,
So,
this is a great window of access to have these activations. And well, it's like if you want to go like processing, because that's wiser to go processing these sips of wisdom, embodying,
mhm.
and putting into practice, and the contemplation that is proposed in Richard Rudd's practice is great. What I see that has been a catalyzer uh, also for Rodrigo. I cannot talk about his records because it's the code of confidence,
Of
the
course, yeah.
confidentiality. But he had a huge. I cannot give that much information, but it's like a huge.
You're frozen, my friend. I don't know if everyone else is seeing that. All right. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think we were
Yes.
too high
Okay.
energy. I think you weren't supposed to share that. I
Exactly. I was thinking the same.
yeah.
These things happens. Anyway, it was
Yeah.
admirable his work and redirection of the huge charge he had in his soul's memories. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've never had my own records fully opened. I was about to collaborate on a friend with a project, and his wife is initiated as a records reader. So he had asked her to check on my records just to see if it would be a good fit. And what she came back to say resonated very strongly, even though it was only a very, very brief piece. So I'd be very curious to explore that at some time in the future. Now, one of the questions that we got in the chat was, do you offer personal readings?
Yes. I mainly do Akashic Records openings, and yes, the process requires that checking of correspondence, because that's a good code or initiatic code that we share in our lineage, that we need to see if we are a match, if I have the proper tune codes that is of the highest good for opening each person's records. So in order to do an Akashic record opening, you have to email me with your full name, and I can get back to you to know if there's correspondence. Yeah.
Okay. How can people find you as we're winding down this information, this chat? What is your email? How can people reach you?
Yes,
Write it in the chat.
you can write at santiagorafael.akasha@gmail.com, or the company one is contacto, as contact in Spanish, contacto, at lafam.org. That's the other one.
Okay, great. So we just completed a series last week that you had said after that series of courses you received in your channeling session that was the end of the public sharing of that particular piece of information, where we dove deeper into the map of the magician and the hero's journey. And so people can find those recordings on your Facebook.
No, those recordings, many are just for the ones who get inside. You remember the importance of being
Okay.
inside the way or not. So
Okay.
the one that is open is the first Heroes map,
Mm-hmm.
that is in Santiago Rafael's channel in YouTube. Otherwise, if you want to have the full videos, the ones that talk about the God's psyche and the sexual energies inside, you can send me an email to those to those emails of Santiago Rafael or Contacto at la Fam, and I can get you the full list of videos. Yes.
Okay, great. So as we're winding down, what are you most excited about right now? Like, what's next for you? What are you working on that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I am, whenever I am tuned into fulfilling my purpose, you know, when you are in the grace track, it's like very, very rewarding internally. So right now, my service for the collective consciousness and each person, each crystallized consciousness that each of us are, is to the channeling practices. So as I cannot do physical initiations that we need to do imprint of codes, we are doing the good channeling practices for clarity and having the codes for channeling. And well, we are going to be doing that training, and I have been downloading that, like initiatic rites to clear our daily habits, to have communication with higher beings, to identify them, what's called the ontological communication. And well, I'm working very deeply on that. And also the assessment of the initiatic ways of readings. That's what we do in our Friday sessions.
Yes.
You have been part in many. It's very fun because we can read our situations in life, the sphinxes, how to do this energy handling and expand our toolkit with the assessment that makes us grow. So all of that, I am sharing it in the emails. So if you feel like being part, joining the ride, we start in this full moon.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you so much for joining today. It's been a pleasure to talk with you as always, and super high vibe. I always feel so good after our conversations. We're talking about very high level things, and I hope that we were able to shed some light on some of these topics for people that have heard the words like Akashic records or channeling, but not necessarily knew what they meant. So I think we did a pretty good job of explaining and expanding on those things. And always a pleasure. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, being part of this. And the recording will be available soon for sharing for people who might have missed it. Thank you all so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.